Well, this talk is a pathway to abundance. Now, the reason that I really wanted to do one more time at least of talking about this is I was sitting out on my patio. This is back, I think in September or something like that, and I talked to David about it. But the thing that had happened to me, I'm sitting on the patio, and I've got flowers and things in the two boxes that I have on the side. I mean, I'm just all soaked up in loving everything that has been happening to me. And plus, I've got all these birds. They've made a nest, and now they're beginning to treat me as though I'm some not very good part of the family, but part of the family. In other words, they tweet at me occasionally, and I tweet back at them. But it's more than that. And then I've had rabbits come up and take a look at me like, what are you doing here, type thing. And they're friendly. They don't seem to be afraid of me. But it's not just that. I'm going through this thing that it feels like that all of these things that I would write out things that I wanted at the Burning Bowl service, and it seems like that all of those are coming true, and I can't think of a single one of them. And I'm down now to where there's no need writing in something about money. There's plenty of that. There's loved ones. I'm so surrounded because our children have married, and their families now have become part of us. And it's just like they're my children and, their parents. And we have now so many that we have to have, like on Christmas, we have to have one big meeting to hold most of them on Christmas Eve and then the rest of them on Christmas Day. I mean, it's getting to be a large group, and I'll tell you what, I love every one of them. And you just can't believe what a group. And all this is happening to me. And I'm saying, this isn't just something to preach and talk about. This is something, an experience in life. And it sort of reminded me of a movie that I saw. And it's way back maybe in the 70s. And I don't know whether, I think most of you are old enough to remember. But the movie was called Oh God. And it was George Burns and John Denver. Remember that? Okay. Now, the whole point of the movie, he first was just a voice. And then they had to see him just to believe what they were hearing, But I remembered the essence of what he was trying to tell John Denver to tell the world. And that was that you have everything in life to make life work. You have everything you need to make life work. I believe I got it right that time. And so he's telling John Denver, look, you've got to go, and you're going to be the one I've picked out. And he said, you could have picked somebody better than me. He said, I haven't been going to church. He said, I haven't got a level of education and all of this stuff. He's beginning to tell him. And he said, I've made so many mistakes. And God said to him, I've made mistakes. He said, look at the avocado. I made the seed way too big. So God's admitting two mistakes, admitting it. Well, I think it's important to know that it's possible to have everything that your heart desires. And there's sort of a pathway to that. I'm sure there's other pathways other than the one I talk about or the one I've experienced. And you may have experienced different things than I have. But I feel like that right now in this church, I've got a group that is really experiencing good things. It's just that feeling when I come in here. There's a sort of a joy that I go through in being here on Sunday. And believe me, you guys are responsible for that. It's good. That's the point I'm making. But one of the things, a point that I wanted to make that is sometimes very difficult because of things we've gone through. But a key point in the pathway to prosperity and to abundance is this: we have to learn to believe in ourselves. There's not really another way. I know in fundamentalism, I believe Jesus was wonderful, but that I didn't, even when I was a minister, I didn't really feel like I was winning enough souls to Jesus. And so I had that guilt that I carried around. And you shouldn't be doing that. That I didn't realize at the time. In other words, I had to go through a lot of things to get to unity. Believe me. But the other thing that is important, and we have to grasp this too, everybody that comes to this planet has a purpose. You may feel like you haven't had a purpose because it might be something that seems simple to you, that you didn't have some great purpose like being the hero of World War II or anything like that, or some other war that was in your lifetime. But still, whatever it is, and I can't define it for you because this is something that is up to each individual, that we have to decide exactly as time goes by what our purpose is. And it may vary over time. In other words, what you may have fulfilled something, but as you're born and coming into this world, you come in with a purpose. And here's another thing that is so important in pursuing these things. You have to learn how to not only believe in yourself, but how to forgive and love yourself. Think about that. Forgive and love yourself. Do you know we're supposed to love our neighbor? And Jesus said, hey, I'm going to go a step farther. He said to us, love your enemies. Loving our neighbor as ourselves. If we don't love ourselves, see what the contrast that makes in it? We learn by learning to love who. That doesn't mean we have to be arrogant about it or have to have ego. It's nothing like that. It's nothing like that. It is just a pure love, knowing that God is in every cell of your body. We have a purpose. We're here for a purpose. And we begin then to believe about our good, and if we've made mistakes. I had a minister that, because after I had some experience in knowing a little bit about spirit, and he was a famous minister. He was from England and had been a big church in Melbourne, Australia, and then he came to us because he thought he was going to have a TV show. But his comment was this. He said, I came here to have a TV show. Now, he's minister of a big church, by the way. And ordinarily, I wouldn't have gotten to be with him. It was some incident that brought this up. But he said to me concerning that TV show, he said, anything like that I've started to do, Satan stepped in and interfered with it. And I told him, oh, that's terrible. I said, do you know, I said, I've made so many mistakes on my own that it seems like Satan just leaves me alone. That's how I felt. I mean, I didn't tell him that to be funny. I told him that because I was serious. And it certainly has in my lifetime. I mean, I look back on it and I said, how can I get to where I am now after all of that? Well, let me just tell you that it seems as though that with our faults and imperfections, our mistakes, all this put together is just part of God's art. When you think about it, because when I've never met anybody that was perfect, but I've met some that thought they were. That's sort of a bumpy thing, to get into. I don't know what to do with them usually. But do you see my idea that I'm making, that we do have to look at this? I feel like everything has been given to me. Spirit brought me Pat. After my first date with Pat, I was talking to someone and said, how did everything go? And I said, well, it went wonderfully, but I said, she's the first person I ever met from another planet. My first ET to run across. But on the other hand, then, that's my part, but on the other hand, I'm just her assignment. She had no choice, But seeing ourselves in a different way and knowing that God is within us. Do you know, there is a scripture I just want to tell you about. I've never heard a minister, especially a fundamentalist minister, mention this scripture. But it's in John, and it's over a ways. I don't remember now the verse. I've got it written down someplace. But they are onto him and really wanting to put him in jail right then. They don't get him in jail right then, but what they're saying is, you're going along saying that you're the Son of God. And he said to them, now I wouldn't want to say this because look what happened to him. But anyway, he said, haven't your prophets told you that you are God's? Did you believe that? Have you ever heard anybody say that? Look over and read the 10th of God, the Gospel of John, over a ways toward the end, and that's what he said. Like I said, got him in a lot of trouble, but that's what he said. Okay, now here is another point that is so essential in getting to where we're trying to get, which is the interpretation, like George Burns made it, of having plenty of everything we need to make life work. But having plenty of everything, one of the real key things, it was for me, it might not be for other people, but it certainly was for me, is becoming or getting to interact with Spirit. Last Sunday, I talked to 2 or 3 of you, and just, if that's what you're experiencing, I'm like PJ, she talks about George and that one presence in her life. Did you know that I know that this presence has always been there? It wasn't just when I discovered it, but I think of God, or thought of God at that time, is out there. And I knew it wasn't somebody on the throne in heaven, which that's sort of the Bible, if you read it, that's sort of what it sounds like. But it's not like that. But let me just tell you what happened to me. This is sort of a tough way to learn, but I fell off of a building. I fell head first down. I was a superintendent on a project, the science building at Southwestern Union College down in Keene, Texas. And I went head first. My wrist had multiple breaks. I hit my head. It had 5 fractures in it. My legs went like that, and I cracked my pelvis. Well, it seemed like from that moment on, there was another presence, because I could memorize everything about the ambulance that's taking me to the hospital. 2 doctors showed up, and they were going to set the bones. And one of them looked at it and said, my God, what a mess. He said, this is going to take us all day, and I don't really believe he's going to live. I'm hearing every word that they said. The chaplain from the college came over and had prayer with me. I'm in a coma. He had prayer with me. And I remembered when he came back, he said, I know you don't know me. And I said, yes, I know you. I said, and I remember your prayer. I didn't, at the time, that was so overwhelming. And when the doctor came back, only one of them came back, and it was Sunday afternoon. And he took him all afternoon, but it was a wonderful job that he did, setting the bones in my wrists. But the idea is that I told him what they had said, every word, and he was so stunned. But my Baptist minister at that time, I had resigned my church a couple of years before, but I was still going to Southern Baptist Church, and he said, Glenn, he stopped me right in the middle. You were just hallucinating. You know, this is not the way it is. And so I didn't continue on to try to talk to him. But I'll tell you this, that's when I began searching for another way to think, you know. I mean, I hope that's not a criticism, because they have their way. And do you know that each gospel that's been taught, or however it's been from place to place, it's everything the people at that time need. At the time when I was 17 years old, I needed everything that I was being taught. But then you reach a point to where if you're praying and you're real intent, then you begin to see things in a little different way. And that's what happened to me. Even in my last church, my messages were less hellfire and brimstone and a little bit more of positive thinking, you know. And you can also use many scriptures. Okay, anyway, that's how I got started. And I hope you don't have to start. I mean, you've already started, and all of you, really, I know. I'm just sitting here telling you how you got to where you are now. You know what I mean? In other words, you're where you need to be, I believe, with all my heart. But it doesn't hurt for you to listen to it. This thing of interacting with Spirit becomes so important that everything that is happening to me now, I realize that it's Spirit that's doing it. It's not me. I hope I can make a quick little example of this. But one of the deals we were writing once, I'm about to retire, getting close to the retirement age and everything. And so we're making out our deal for the bull burning. Okay. Pat made hers out, but then after she got through, she added one more thing. If there was some way, you know, we've been driving for 20 years, a Camry, okay? She said, I think I'd like to have a Lexus. Okay, I was bidding a job and starting a job, and you'd never guess who the owner was. He was over all the management of Sewell, including Sewell Lexus. And this man then later went to so much trouble to get us the perfect car. I said, it doesn't have to be new, you know, but with all of the warranties and everything. What a wonderful guy. But do you think it was an accident that I was? It was no accident. These things work if you totally believe in them. I think what we do in time with things going our way, I believe this thing of the presence of Spirit in our lives becomes I know that PJ has said this, that she spends the day off and on, you know, talking. I'm doing the same thing, not because of what somebody has told me, but because of what I'm experiencing. And it's just like I have a keeper, somebody that cares about every little thing. And everybody has this. This is what the thing. And to go through life without interacting would be like having your helper sitting beside you on a chair and you can't see them and you ignore them. And you missed all of the extra help that you could get in life. I mean, that's what really happens to people, that don't discover they have so much help on so many big issues that come up in their life. And it's just like right now. I can't think of anything. Well, when I say that, like when I do Burning Bowl, usually it would be the flow of money, the flow of love. Now I'm down to spirit. I'd like to get rid of this belly. I mean, big stuff, important stuff. But it feels like everything has been fulfilled and come through my life. So I just wanted to share that with you. But what we do then, by the things I've talked about and the things that you know already about, but we create a prosperous image of ourselves. Now, the thing about it is, all of the things we desire are already there. I mean, they're already there. They just haven't manifested. So part of the thing is finding the kind of relationship with Spirit and then the kind of life. And there's so many things that Spirit will actually teach you. I'm going to give you an example. I felt like that generosity was such a big issue. I mean, it's so much bigger than, I knew it was important, but Jesus talks about giving, and whatever you give, if you're beginning to give, you begin to receive also. But this thing too of forgiving, being able to forgive and not having, I want to tell you, Oprah Winfrey has the best story about that I believe I've heard in a long time. She talks about having a boy that was her boyfriend, and that at the end of it, that he really did her dirty. She said, I hated that guy. And she said that about a year later, said, I was walking along downtown, and here he came down the street. He's got a little girl by the hand, a beautiful little girl, and he's just so happy and everything. And she said, I said to myself, I have all of this time punishing myself for what he did. That's what's happening. The forgiving isn't all about the person. I mean, it is, but so much of it is about ourselves and what we want within inside of us. And if we won't hate, what happens, we get back plenty. That's just like if you're a complainer, Spirit says, oh, wonderful, I can give you all the stuff you'll ever need to complain about. I mean, it works like that. I don't know how, but it works like that. And this is why we don't want to have an enemy. Loving our enemy. I think maybe that if nations ever came to that conclusion of loving your enemy, they wouldn't say, we need a bigger bomb to blow them up. We just need to love them and care about them and find a way to eliminate wars. Well, what I'm praying for is the joyousness of everyone here. This is what my desire, the desire of my heart is. I want you to not only have everything that you desire come into your life physically, but the love of people. I'll tell you, you've already got at least one person here that just loves you to pieces, and that's me. Well, I don't need to tell you how wonderful you are, but that can be for another message. But seriously, everything is out there in the invisible world right now. And all we have to do is sort of follow a little guideline and experience it. Thank you.